What's your next big dream? Do you have one? What's the long shot that you would like to see actually come true and happen in your life? Let's bring it a little bit closer. On July 4th of this year of 2025, what would you like? So right now it's, I think, February, it's the end of February 2025. By July 4th, what new form of liberation would you like to be celebrating in your life? April 4th until July 4th, that's 3 months. That's one full season, pretty much, of working steadily towards something new. It could be something you want more of in your life, something you do not want in your life any longer. It could be a whole new life. Like, what is your dream? What do you want to change in the next season of life? All right. What are the steps that will get you there? Now, I'll give you an example. In 2017, I knew something needed to change. 2018, it became very apparent to me that it was my teaching job. It was so uncomfortable. I no longer could do that, but I couldn't just up and leave. I knew I needed something else to go into, to look forward to get us through the next step. And I wasn't sure, and I pondered it for quite a while. I started, in 2017, I committed to changing myself, my own mindset, because I dealt with a lot of anxiety. Oddly enough, that actually meditation helped me deal with the anxiety, but the anxiety revved up more and more the longer I stayed in the job I knew I no longer was supposed to be in. So, just a side note there. Meditation won't necessarily cure your anxiety if your anxiety is due to a misalignment and is your soul's way of getting your attention and saying, hey, it's time to move. Side note. So by 2019, I was pretty sure, okay, I know we need to move, because without my job, we can't afford the mortgage for our house. I was the only one working at the time, and which oddly enough was preparing me for being a single mom, which was a phase of life I never thought I was going to be in, and then abruptly was in 2020. So 2019, I knew we needed to move because we couldn't pay the bills the way that we had them for the home without my job. I knew I wanted to leave my job. I had no idea what I wanted to do next. That's actually not true. I had an idea of what I wanted to do next. You see, I had gone to get my master's in education, and about halfway through the master's degree program, so this was back in 2011 through 13, I had gone to get my master's in higher education administration. My idea was to work at a college because what I loved most about teaching, this is gonna be real surprising, was guiding people into their next thing. So my students, seeing in them what they hadn't yet seen in themselves, or what they had but they needed encouragement to really grow into and develop into, and then encouraging them to pursue their next path, or inspiring them to pursue a path that maybe they had never thought was possible for them, or they hadn't seen for themselves, and talking them through, real world, real life steps to get there. That was my favorite thing to do as a high school teacher. So I decided to leave high school, get my master's with the goal of working at the college level. Halfway through my master's, I realized that the university system is really, in many ways, just an extension. Granted, not always, and not in all ways, but in many ways it's just an extension of the K-12 system, which is an education system that just is lockstep, leading people into this life of this set life path, and with a ceiling on it. Just a job where they stay at, and then they trudge on until retirement, and then they finally go and live their life. And that was not, I no longer believed in that path. Not for me, not for mine. And I was like, well, I don't really want to work for this system. There's a lot of indoctrination at the university level too. It was very difficult to have open, honest conversations. If you didn't side with the narrative that the professor or the majority of, at the time I was in a cohort of other students, the majority of the cohort subscribed to, you were not always treated. Actually, you were often not treated with the same level of respect that they wanted to be treated themselves. And all of that was just, I was done with it. And so here I am, halfway through a master's program. Do I finish it? Do I drop out of the master's program? In hindsight, I probably should have dropped out of the program, but I did not. I continued on, finished what I started, and after that, I thought, maybe I'll be a life coach. And I did what I do often, which is try to do all the things to prepare to be a life coach, besides actually just be a life coach and help people. So money ran out. Long story short, money ran out. I needed a job. I went back into teaching, with the hopes that this was a charter school. It was maybe going to be a better option. This was going to be the ticket. I could still teach. I could still motivate students. And my children got to go to the charter school because I was teaching there. That was good. It was an improvement. But it was just a step on the path. And about 4 years in, 2017, I knew that I had to find something different. My values of our family being together and my kids being able to pursue who they were, like being free to be them, and us not living this lifestyle where we were rushing out the door every morning, barely having time together in the evenings, blah, blah, blah. I just didn't want it anymore. So in 2019, I knew that leaving my teaching position was inevitable. That was the step I had to make. I did not know yet what was coming next. The idea at the time was we wanted to have a homestead. Made sense, checked all the boxes for our values. There's only one problem. We weren't familiar with where we wanted to homestead. We knew we didn't want to stay in the same area where we lived. We really wanted to move out west. I had always dreamed, I've mentioned this before, of living as a little girl, I told everybody I was going to live in Texas. And if not Texas, then Wyoming or Montana. And that, I've been called towards that area my entire life. And since we weren't sure which of those areas we wanted to settle down in, and kind of wanted to try it out. And I knew that being a homestead family, we were going to be, at the time, I believed, homesteading meant you had to stay put for a certain period of time. Nowadays, there are all kinds of ways to get around that. There are groups popping up all over the place. If you do want to homestead, but you still want to travel, there are ways to do it. Side note, at the time, I did not realize that. And so I thought if we wanted to travel, we needed to travel now before we, dove headfirst into this homesteading project. And since we wanted to homestead in the US, we decided, well, let's do a gap year, but have it in the US and, tour as many areas of the country as we can during that year. And then at the end of the year, the idea was we'd settle somewhere and have, buy some land or lease some land until we could buy. We'd sell, we'd have the RV to live in on the land. And my idea also was by then I would have my life coaching business up and running and able to support us. Well, so then the next step in the dream process, right, became getting everything ready so that we could move and become a full-time nomadic family. And that decision was pretty much solidified right about this time frame. Like my birthday, the end of February in 2019, is when we made the solid decision and set forth the plan. And I didn't really have a specific plan at the time, but it evolved as we went along. And in 90 days, we had sold our house, moved all our stuff out, bought a new RV, or new to us RV. And, it wasn't until the end of July that we actually got the RV and moved in and began our journey. But it was really April is when we hired our real estate agent. And the end of June, we had moved out of the home that we'd lived in for the last 12 years, stored all our stuff, kept the things that we were going to keep and taken the RV with us, and we're in negotiations on what kind of RV to buy for us. And so I tell you all that to let you know that you cannot know right now what you want to do next, but have an idea of what it is. And in 90 days, you can completely change your life. You can go from living in the house you live in now, working the job you go to every day now, to whatever your version of the next step is. Yours might not be selling everything and moving into an RV. Maybe yours is staying in the home you have, but building a side business, or building a business in the next 90 days that's going to allow you to stay in that home every day with your kids. Or maybe you do want to homestead like we did, and you know right where you want to go, or you have an idea, or you have enough faith in being guided to the right spot that you are just going to go, which in hindsight probably would have been, no, our path was what it was supposed to be. But you might know that you want to homestead and you just invest. You could sell your house, quit your job that you've got now, and go all in on your homestead. 90 days, you can completely turn around your life if you put focus and attention towards it. So really, the main thing you need to know is, what is that big pivotal change that you want to have happen in the next 90 days? At the time, I could not see how I was going to move and get a coaching business up and running at the same time. And so I wanted to buy ourselves some time. And that is what the gap year, that's ultimately what ended up being the gap year. And in hindsight, it was exactly the step we needed to take. There were so many lessons that I needed to learn before becoming a life coach. So many of my own life lessons, so many of my own limiting beliefs that I needed to work on, so many ways that my eyes needed to be open in even more ways. I have pretty much my entire life been somebody who sees things, it's felt like, from a different perspective than those around me. And it seems like more and more there's more and more people seeing things from a similar perspective now, but there weren't always. You know, the entrepreneurship lifestyle, the nomadic lifestyle, things like that, I've always been drawn to them. I've always thought, well, there's got to be a better way to do this, and why are we doing it this way? Why do we, for example, I remember asking my mom in the grocery store as a little kid why we bought margarine. And she, said because it was supposed to be better for us than butter. And I just remember thinking, but doesn't butter come from cows? What does margarine come from? Is it natural? Isn't butter natural? Why is butter bad for us? How can it be bad for us if it's the natural thing? And so from a young age, I very much was inclined to think along this way, like, why are we doing it this way? Doesn't it make more sense to do it, this way with kids in school? If so many kids, so all three of my children struggled, and I was a teacher. All three of my children struggled to learn how to read from kindergarten to second grade. And their teachers just seemed to be really worried about it. And the whole time I was like, I don't think there's anything to worry about. Come to find out, guess what? Natural brain development, the way most kids work, 8 years old is when they should start having any kind of reading instruction. Now, if they're interested in it before then, great. But even as a young mom, I was like, there's nothing to worry about here. They're going to pick it up. They will pick it up when they are ready. And this has really been my anthem for most of my life is, people will change when they're ready. Children will learn when they're ready. I will do the things I need to do when I am ready. And yes, there are ways to speed up that process, but sometimes I feel like we try to speed up these processes, not realizing what we're losing on the other end of that, which is the development, the inner foundation that needs to be built in ourselves, in our children, in our children's nervous systems, the connections that they need with themselves, with nature, with those around them, before we start trying to add other things. And so that's a whole tangent on just my different perspective. But all that to say, what dream do you have, and what do you want to change in your life? What new form of liberation, self-liberation, do you want to celebrate on July 4th? And whatever it is, know that it can happen. And if it doesn't happen, you can be sure that it will when you're ready for it. You don't have to rush things along. And if you're somewhere, because I can hear it right now, because I was the same way, like, yeah, but Stephanie, I need money now. Or yeah, but Stephanie, this situation sucks right now. I need out, and I don't see a way. I don't see how 90 days is going to change anything. Trust me. I get you. Oh, I fully understand that. And what I would, first off, I acknowledge where you are. I know what it feels like. I am the queen at walking around in circles and staying stuck. And yet, when I paused, each time I have been in a situation like that, when I finally let myself pause, take some deep breaths in, think about what in my life right now am I grateful for? There are so many things. You have breath in your lungs. That is something to be grateful for. Are your children healthy? That is something to be grateful for. Are they not healthy, but you know that there is yeah, if your children are not healthy, I don't know what to say about that, because I too have been down that road, and I got nothing for that one other than deep, deep compassion. Wherever you're feeling stuck right now, if you could just pause and ask yourself, what is the lesson for me here? What is the lesson for me here, right now? And if it's a situation, if you can look back in your life and it's a situation that you see has been a pattern, yeah, I think we're going to end it there. What thing in your life, what dream do you have that you would like to make a reality by July 4th of this year? It can happen. Focus on it and take steps towards the change you want in your life. You might be very, very surprised what your life looks like in the next season. All right. Be well, and I will talk to you again soon.